Bourgeoisie has stripped off its halo. Every occupation hetero, honored and looked up to with relevant awe. It has converted the physician, the lawyer, the priest, the poet, the man of science into its paid wage laborers. Bourgeoisie has torn away from the family sentimental veil and has reduced the family relation to a mere money relation. The bourgeoisie disclosed how it came to pass that the brutal display of vigor, vigor in the middle class, in the Middle Ages, which reactionaries so much admire, found a fitting complement in the most slothful insolence. It has been the first to show what man's activity can bring about. It has accomplished wonders far surpassing Egyptian pyramids, Roman aqueducts, and Gothic cathedrals. It has conducted expeditions that put in the shades of all former exclusive nations and crusades. The bourgeoisie cannot exist without constantly revolutionizing instruments of production, and thereby the relation of production, and with them the whole relations of society. Conversion, conversion of the old modes of production in unaltered form was, on the contrary, the first condition of existence for all earlier industrial classes. Constant revolutionizing of production, uninterrupted, uninterrupted disturbance of all social conditions, everlasting uncertainty, and agitation distinguished the bourgeoisie epochs from all earlier ones. All fixed, fast frozen relations with their train of ancient and venerable prejudices and opinions are all swept away. All new formed ones become antiquated before they can ossify, and that is solid melts into air, all that is holy is profane, and man is compelled to face sober senses his real conditions of life and his relations with his kind. In the need of constantly expanding markets for its product chases the bourgeoisie over the entire surface of the globe. It must nestle everywhere, settle everywhere, establish connections everywhere. Bourgeoisie has, though, as true its exploitation of the world market given cosmopolitan character to the production and consumption in every country. To the great chagrin of reactionists, it has drawn from under the feet of industry the national ground on which it stood. All old established national industries have been destroyed or are daily being destroyed and are now dislodged by new industries whose introduction becomes a life and death question for all civilized nations. By, by industries that no longer work up indigenous raw material, but raw material draw from the remotest of zones. Industries with products are consumed, not only at home, but in every quarter of the globe. In the place of old ones satisfied by the production of the country, you find new ones requiring for their satisfaction the products of distant lands and climes. In place of old local national seclusion and self sufficiency, we have intercourse in every direction, on universal interdependencies of nations, and as in material, so also intellectual production. The intellectual creation of individual nations become common property. Nation, national one-sidedness and narrow-mindedness become more and more impossible. And from the numerous national and local literatures there arises a new world literature. The bourgeoisie, by the rapid improvement of all instruments of production, by the immense facilitated means of communication, draws all, even the most barbarian, nations into civilization. Cheap prices of commodities are the heavy artillery with with which it batters down all Chinese walls, with its with which its forces, the barbarians, intensely abstain hatred of foreigners to capitulate. It compel it compels all nations, on pain of extinction, to adopt bourgeois modes of production, compels them to introduce what it calls civilization into their midst, i.e., to become bourgeoisie themselves. In one word, it curates a world after its own image. Bourgeoisie has subjugated the country to rule of the towns, has created enormous cities, has greatly increased the urban population as compared with the rural, and has thus rescued a considerable part of the population from idiocy of rural life. Just as it has made one country dependent on the towns, so it has made barbarians and semi-barbarian countries dependent on the civilized one. Nations of peasants on nations of bourgeoisies, the East and West. Bourgeoisie keep more and more doing away with the scattered state of population, of the means of production, and of property. It has agglomerated population, cent- centralized the means of production, and concentrated property in few hands. A necessary consequence of this was political centralization, independent, or, but loosely, connected provinces with separate interests, laws, government, and systems of taxation became lumped together into one nation, one government, a code of law, one national class interest, one frontier, and one custom tariff. The bourgeoisie, during its rule, scarce 100 years, had created more massive and colossal productive forces than have preceding generations together. Subjugation of nature's forces to man, machinery, application of chemistry to industry and agricultural, steam navigation, railways, electric telegraphs, clearing of the whole continents for cultivation, canalization of rivers, whole populations conjured out of the ground. What earlier century had even presentiment that such productive forces slumbered in the lap of social labor? We see then the means of production and of exchange, on whose foundation the bourgeoisie built itself up, were generated in feudal society. At a certain stage in the development of these means of production and of exchange, a condition under which feudal society produced and exchanged the feudal organizations of agriculture and manufacturing industry. In one word, the feudal relations of property became no longer compatible with the already developed productive forces. They became so many fetters they had to be burst asunder. They were burst asunder. Into their place stepped free competition, accompanied by a social and political constitution adapted in it, and the economic and political sway of the bourgeoisie's class. Now, whew, I will continue this in the next episode. Uh, chapter, whatever. It really sucks I have to use Bandicam, because I only get to record 10 minutes of this. Anyway, I will see you in the next one.